Keeper is the next in our star-studded lineup. We have Teresa Rothaar. She's the GRC analyst at Keeper. And again, keep those questions coming in because I'll be posing these questions live with Teresa. And with that, Teresa, let's do this.
Okay, everybody. I am Teresa Rothaar. I hope you all are having a great afternoon or morning, evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. I'm the Senior GRC Analyst here at Keeper Security, and today I'm going to talk to you about some of the challenges of building a robust GRC framework for your organization, and I'm also going to offer you some solutions along the way. So, with all that in mind, let's get started. Got Mackenzie running the slides. Slide 2, please, Mackenzie. Now, compliance costs are extremely high. We all know that. According to Investopedia, the average organization spends about $5.5 million on compliance every year, but the cost of non-compliance, that's even worse. They estimate that at being about $15 million, nearly 3 times higher. What are the biggest contributors to these annual costs? Well, most of it is administrative tasks. Most organizations still perform their compliance tasks inside silos. And during audits, that results in what one of my very first clients in cybersecurity like to call audit anarchy. And audit anarchy is the mad dash to chase down all the people and documentation needed for an audit. You have to go to HR for this, you have to go to finance for that, you have to go to this person, that person. This wastes untold work hours just chasing people down to get what you need for the auditor. Next slide, please. There is a veritable alphabet soup of IT compliance certifications and regulations. We in compliance, we love our acronyms. We got HIPAA, we got SOX, we got PCI, and so on and so on. However, all of these frameworks have one thing in common. They have one common end goal. You're trying to prevent an organizational data breach. You're trying to keep your data safe and your customers' data safe. Now, unfortunately, the cyber threat environment has become more dangerous than ever. And most of that is of our own doing. We didn't mean to do that. We were just trying to create new and more efficient ways of working. But in doing so, we increased our attack surface, cloud computing, mobility, the shift to remote work. That's been a boon for employees and organizations alike. Employees can work from wherever they're located, and organizations can hire the very best people, no matter where they are in the world. But all this has some drawbacks. First of all, people's home networks generally don't have the same security controls as organizational networks. And then if you have people working from hotels, your road warriors, like your sales reps, well, that's even worse. I mean, public Wi-Fi at hotels, at airports, and coffee shops is notoriously insecure. Then, if your organization allows BYOD, bring your own device, and a lot of organizations do, at least to some extent, well, those devices, they aren't going to have anywhere near as robust security controls as an organizational-owned device is. My personal phone certainly doesn't have the same security protections as my work laptop. Next slide, please, Mackenzie. Now, one of the biggest threats is account compromise, essentially stealing a password and being able to get into a system or a device. Microsoft did a study a couple years back, and they found that multi-factor authentication can prevent virtually all account compromise attacks, like 99.999%, or something like that. But only a little over 25% of users actually enable MFA wherever it's supported. And that's because, let's be realistic, MFA, it could be a bit of a pain requires the user to take extra steps to log in, and usually these days it's fumbling with a mobile phone. I gotta find my cell phone. I gotta get the push notification. I gotta get the code from the app. Whenever you put stumbling blocks in front of your users, they're gonna try to avoid them, not because they don't care about security, but because they're just trying to get their job done more efficiently. And you know, oh my God, where's my phone? I gotta get into this system and do my work now. I don't have time to spend 10 minutes looking for my phone. So they just won't enable MFA. They'll try to avoid enabling it, and then, well, you don't have that extra layer of protection. If somebody steals their password, they can get right into that account. Next slide, please. Okay, now that we've taken a look at some of the problems, I'm going to talk to you about some of the solutions. First, the principle of least privilege. Now, this is an extremely simple concept, but it's really effective in preventing data breaches, or at least decreasing the blast radius if a data breach occurs. It just means that you give your users the appropriate amount of systems and data access to perform their jobs and no more. So, as an example, only the employees you have that actually work on your payroll system need to be able to get into the payroll system. Only your sales team needs to be able to get into Salesforce or whatever CRM it is that you're using at your company. Least privileged access mitigates threats from malicious or, and this is the more common scenario, careless insiders. So it prevents people who have no business being in your payroll system or in your CRM or wherever it is to just go in there and start poking around. They just want to see what's in there. People are curious. Well, you don't want people getting too curious, because then they could make mistakes, or they could access data that is, you know, way above their pay grade, and then that can throw you out of compliance. Now, additionally, least privilege also limits external threat actors if they do manage to compromise a set of user credentials that aren't protected by MFA. So they can only access what the compromised user can access instead of the entire system. You don't want every user to have God mode, because then any user that gets compromised, well, then the threat actor has access to the whole system. A data breach is never a good thing. Even when it's small, we want to prevent it. But least privilege at least ensures that that breach is contained. So it does two things: protects you from the careless insiders, the malicious insiders, and from the external threat actors should the worst happen and an account be compromised. Next slide, please. Least privileged access can be achieved in multiple ways. One of them, there's a whole bunch of frameworks, and one of the most popular are role-based enforcements. The way role-based enforcement works is, rather than provisioning access on the level of individual users, we create a smaller set of roles, then slot employees into those roles. You don't want to onboard every user and then manually give them access and everything they need. Think about the kind of time that would take. That would really only work if you could count your employees on one hand and have fingers left over. Maybe you could sit there and do that. Otherwise, you're getting in the dozens, hundreds, thousands of employees. Being able to just hire people and then you slot them into a role and then they have everything they need to do their job from day one, well, that's a lot simpler for you. Also a lot simpler when you offboard them. You just remove their role permissions and you remove them from all of your systems. Takes a lot of stress off your IT team while also enhancing your security. Now, additionally, role-based controls can also be used to mandate your policies. Employees don't like having to fumble with MFA. Well, role-based controls can make sure that they have to enable MFA. You can require it, and they won't be able to do anything unless they enable it. You could also do things like mandate geographic or time of day restrictions, data export restrictions. So if you have people working all over the world or even just all over your country in multiple time zones, you could set it so that they can only access your systems during their normal work hours, depending on where they're located. So you can make it that employees that are supposed to be in the United States, well, if they try to log in from Europe, they can't do that, or anywhere else in the world, they can't do that. And that helps prevent account compromises, because one of the ways you can detect an account compromise is all of a sudden, somebody in Idaho, they're trying to log in from Berlin. What? That's a big sign there that maybe their account's compromised. The role-based controls can be used to prevent that from happening in the first place. You could also do things like put on data export permissions. Some employees will need to export data as part of their job. Well, you can make it so that certain roles they're allowed to do that, and other roles they're just not allowed to because they don't need to. There's no reason for them to be doing it, so we're not going to give them that permission. Okay, next slide, please, Mackenzie. Now, we're going to talk about how Keeper can help you implement role-based policies and control your employees' password practices. The way Keeper does it, we let you control user access on the levels of roles, teams, and nodes. Let me go over all those. So it'll make sense once I explain it, I promise. Now, roles are just what I went on about in the last slide or two. They allow you to define enforcement policies based on users' job responsibility, and you could also provide delegated administrative functions this way. Now, teams allow you to share accounts among predefined user groups. Ideally, you don't want people sharing passwords. You want everybody to have their own login, own unique login to every system. But in the real world, sometimes it doesn't work out that way. There may be situations where certain people on a team need to share a set of login credentials. Teams let you do that safely. It also ensures consistency of enforcement policies across this collective group of individuals. So you ensure that that shared account, well, it has MFA enabled. And then finally, there are nodes. Now, nodes are used to organize your users into distinct groupings. This is much like your organizational units, your OUs, in Active Directory. And you can create nodes based on location, department, division, or any other structure that your company wants. We give you lots of options. It's customizable. You can customize it to your needs. You can tailor it to your organization's specific needs. Next slide, please. Now, what about your most privileged users, your IT admins and your DevOps teams? They need to get into some pretty sensitive systems, and a lot of times they're doing it remotely, because they're working from home or wherever. Enter Keeper Connection Manager. It's an agentless remote desktop gateway that provides your IT admins and DevOps teams with secure and easy remote access to RDP, SSH, database, and Kubernetes endpoints right through their web browser, negating the need for them to have to use a VPN. VPNs, they're a pain to configure. They tend to suffer from sluggishness. People really don't like VPNs for very good reasons. Keeper Connection Manager lets you just ditch the VPN, make it so that your IT admins and your DevOps teams can get into these highly sensitive systems and do their work, again, safely. Next slide, please. Now, Keeper ARAM helps you monitor employee compliance and prevent audit anarchy by providing Keeper administrators and compliance teams with the tools they need to monitor overall usage and policy adherence. And it also gives you a robust reporting engine. At audit time, you can generate custom time-based reports with over 100 different event types broken down by category. This includes reports specifically tailored to address SOX, ISO, and SOC compliance auditing requirements. So it's going to greatly reduce the time that you need to spend during the audit chasing all those people around in audit anarchy. Then Keeper ARAM also helps you monitor user password behavior and compliance year-round with webhooks and SIM integration. You can tell it that you want it to send alerts using webhooks or SIM integration based on activities that you define within ARAM, that there's certain behaviors that you want to be alerted on. Next slide, please. We here at Keeper are super excited to announce 2 recently launched features. We had gotten tons of requests for these, and this is how we end up incorporating a lot of features into our product. We listen to what our customers want when they ask for things, when they tell their reps, hey, I'd really like this. We see if we can integrate it. So these 2 features that we recently launched, time-limited access and self-destructing records. And I'm going to tell you more about those and how they can help you. Next slide, please. Time-limited access lets you securely share credentials or secrets with other individual Keeper users on a temporary basis, and then it automatically revokes their access at a time that you specify. This greatly reduces the risk of unauthorized access by automatically removing the shares from the other user's vault after the share expires at the time that you specify it. So what happens is when you set a time-limited access, you're actually sending this to the other person's Keeper vault directly. So it's all very safe. It's all zero knowledge, no sticky notes or emails or anything insecure. They get it in their vault. They get a notification from Keeper. Hey, so-and-so just shared a Keeper record with you. Log in and see it. And then, you could use it for files. You could use it for login credentials that you only want somebody to have temporarily, whatever it is you want. Next slide, please. Now, self-destructing records they're similar to time-limited access, but the person you're sharing with does not need to have a Keeper account to access the shared record. So this is great when you're sharing a record outside your organization, maybe with a freelancer or a contractor who's doing work for your company, but since they're not part of your organization, you haven't provisioned them a Keeper vault. They're not in your account. They work for another company or they work for themselves. Well, this lets you safely share records with them anyway without them needing to have a Keeper account. And what happens here, the record does not leave your vault. You're sending them a secure link to a record in your vault. You set an expiration date, and the record automatically deletes itself from your vault. It self-destructs once the share link expires and the recipient's access is revoked. This saves you a lot of time, and it's also a lot safer because you don't need to remember to access this record and remove it from your vault. Keeper just does it automatically. So you share this with your freelancer or your contractor. You set it for 10 days or whatever, and then when it expires, boom, it's gone. It's like it never even happened. Next slide, please. Interested in finding out more about Keeper? Sure you are. And Keeper will give you a free 3-year personal Keeper password manager plan just for attending one of our demos. All you have to do is attend the demo, and we'll talk to you a lot more about all things Keeper can do for your organization, because I really just, gave you the Reader's Digest version here in this webinar. And then you could get a free 3-year personal Keeper plan so you can keep yourself safe online. The personal Keeper password manager plans have the same zero-knowledge encryption, all the same abilities as the business plans, but for individuals. So you just don't have like the business stuff. You have all the safety and a whole bunch of features, but you just don't have, teams and, things like that you don't need as an individual. Okay, well, that does it for my presentation. Now I will open up the floor to your questions.
Okay, well, you've already had some questions come in throughout the presentation. So
brilliant.
Yeah, actually, there's quite a few, so we'll see how many we can get through. Great presentation,
right.
By the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. First question. There's so many. Okay, so this is about those 2 new features. This should be an easy question. Are they included with normal license, or is it an add-on to the base Keeper license?
Let me see here. I'm just checking that.
There, good to know. We don't want to give misinformation.
They are both included with the regular Keeper licensing, and no add-on is needed.
Okay, perfect. Awesome.
I'm sorry, sorry it took a moment there, since these are brand new, and I don't normally do sales. I just wasn't entirely sure.
No worries, no worries. Okay, next question here is it only passwords, or can you self-destruct other types of records? For example, attachments, payment info, and so on.
That I know right off the bat. Self-destructing records can be applied to any type of record, including documents, spreadsheets, images and photos, whatever you want.
Okay, cool. And similar vein here, this question is from Phil. He says, when the access expires, is the admin notified to change the password?
Admins can set up automatic password rotation for the record, so they don't even need to be notified. They could set it up at the beginning where it just automatically changes the password.
Oh, very cool. That's very nifty. I like this. You guys, I might have to use this for the personal account you're talking about here.
Well, come to a demo and we'll set you up.
Okay. What else we got in here? Lots of goodies. Okay, so this is also to do with the self-destructing records. This asks, how does the timer work for the self-destructing records?
Oh, that's great. The timer doesn't begin until the user actually opens the link. So let's say you only want the person to have it for 24 hours or something really short.
Yeah.
That countdown doesn't begin until they actually open the link. Ooh. So users can, and you can set the time, and it could be anywhere from minutes to hours. It could be 15 minutes if you want it to just be 15 minutes, 24 hours, days. Whatever it is you want, whatever it is you need.
I feel like this should be used for like contests and university exams, right? Because they're always like, don't do this, don't do that. You're like, this is the way to make it actually happen automatically.
Well, it's really great if you have, let's say you have somebody who's doing temporary work for you for, I don't know, the next 90 days or something, where you could just set the record to automatically expire in 90 days. Yeah. So that way when they stop doing work for you, that's the end of it. It automatically just yanks their access.
The offboarding process in a lot of companies is very clunky and inconsistent. Yeah. So this kind of just sets it up from the get-go. That's great.
Yeah, and auditors check that as part of the SOC too, and a lot of these other audit frameworks. When you go through an audit, they'll pull people at random and terminated employees, terminated users, and they'll ask to see proof that you terminated them access from the system within a certain amount of time.
Okay.
So this gives you proof that you did that.
That's amazing. Okay, we have maybe time for one more question here. This one, I have a couple that have come in around kind of sharing permissions. So this is, can you set sharing permissions to folders, or do those settings encompass the whole environment?
Oh no, you could set it just to folders. We have quite a bit of granularity as to who can share what throughout your organization, and that's applicable from the record level all the way on up to the folder level. So if you, like, going back to the freelancer and contractor example, if you could put everything that this temporary person would need in a folder and share that folder with them so that they have everything they need to work for you for whatever period of time they're going to work for you for.
All right. Amazing. Well, I think that's all the time we have today, but thank you so much for being here. And
thank you.
Are there any final words you want to leave the audience with today, or a final call to action?
Please secure your passwords, because that's usually how people end up getting breached. It's, you know, you see on TV, they show these hackers viciously typing in hoodies in front of the computer, and the overwhelming majority of the time, that's not how it happens. They get into your systems because they compromise somebody's password, or somebody clicks on a phishing link compromising their password. That's almost always how it happens. Then they get the password, boom, they go right into your system. So please secure your passwords.
Yes,
come attend one of our demos, and we'll give you the free subscription so you can secure your own passwords too.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. Great to have you here, and hope to have you back again.
Love to be back. Have a great day.